The Java programming language allows you to create methods that share the same name but have different signatures. A method signature is the unique combination of keywords and arguments that the method receives. For example, the standard main method receives an argument which is an array of strings. You can create your own custom methods in your class, and where necessary, you can create multiple methods that share the same name as long as they have different signatures. The Java virtual machine determines at runtime which version of a method it should run, depending on what arguments are passed to it. Let's create a few very simple methods. I'm working in a beginning main class in the project method overloading. I'll place the cursor after the static void main method, and I'll create a new method using private static. I'll set the method's return value to int, and I'll name the method addValues. For this first version of the method, I'll receive two arguments, and they'll both be data typed as integers. I'll name the first one int1 and the second one int2. The body of the method will add up these two values and return the result. I'll do it all in a single statement. Return int1 plus int2. In the main method, I'll declare two starting variables. I'll declare them both as integers. I'll name the first one value1, and I'll set it to a value of 5. And I'll create the second one as value2, and set it to a value of 10. I'll declare an integer result variable, and get its value from addValues. And I'll pass in value1 and value2. And I'll output the result using system.out.println. The result is, and then plus result. I'll save and run the application, and everything's fine. The result is 15. Now, I'm going to add two more versions of this method. I'll copy the existing version, and I'll paste it in, making sure I do this inside the body of the class. And notice right now that I'm getting warnings that I have duplicate methods. The reason they're duplicates is not just because of the name, but also because they receive the same number and data types of arguments. So unlike other languages like JavaScript or ActionScript, I don't need to rename the second version of the method. I can just change the method signature. I'll have this method receive a third argument. The data type again will be int, and the name will be int3. And I'll change the return statement to add that variable as well. As soon as I make the change, all of the errors go away. I'm still left with a warning that I have a method that's not currently being called. But I'll fix that. I'll go back to my main method and create a third value, and I'll set it to 15, and then I'll change the way I'm calling the method, and I'll pass in value 3. I'll save the change and run the application, and now I get the result is 30. Clearly, I'm now running the second version of the method. So you can have more than one method of the same name, as long as they have different numbers of arguments. But you can also distinguish methods from each other by the data types of the arguments. I'll create one more version of the addValues method. My code's getting a little longer now, so I'll maximize my editor. I'll move the cursor under all the other methods, and I'll create another private, static, and returns an int. And once again, it'll have the name addValues. This version of the method will have two arguments, but they'll both be strings. And I'll call them val1 and val2. Now, in order to add these values together, I need to convert them to integers. So within the method, I'll declare two integer variables. The first one will be called value1, and I'll set its value using integer.parseInt, and I'll pass in val1, and then I'll make a copy of that line. I'll change the second version to create a variable called value2, and it'll get its value from val2, and then I'll do a return statement, and I'll add together value1 and value2. So now I have three versions of the method: addValues with two integers, addValues with three integers, and addValues with two strings. I'll go back up to the code and I'll create a couple new variables. The first one will be a string, and it'll be named string1. And I'll give it a value of 10, but because it's a string, it has to be wrapped in double quotes. I'll set string2 to a value of 25. Then I'll create a variable called result2, and I'll get its values from the addValues method. And notice when I press Control Space, Eclipse shows me all the different versions of the method that are available. The version with the two integers, the version with the two strings, and the version with the three ints. I'll choose the version with the two strings, and I'll pass in string1 and string2. I'll make a copy of my print line command and paste it down here, and I'll output the value of result2. I'll run the application, And the second version is clearly calling the version that receives the strings. So this sort of coding is called method overloading. When you overload a method, you're reusing the same method name, but you're creating alternative signatures. This is a good coding strategy in Java to handle situations where in one circumstance you have a certain set of variables, in another circumstance you got another set, and where the data types can differ as well. By simply reusing the method names but having distinct method signatures, it makes your coding much more flexible. And again, this is something that Java does that other languages in the C family might not. JavaScript and ActionScript, for example, don't allow method overloading. In those languages, each method name can only be used once. They have other strategies, such as the ability to receive variable numbers of parameters in a method. But this capability of Java can be valuable to your application design.